Yeah, it's been a while since we've done one of these, hasn't it? Hello everybody, welcome back to Meddling in Antiquity. My name is Teray, and today on Formative Fashions, we're going to be doing Wybie from Coraline. So I know it's been a while since I've done a Formative Fashions video. I think the last one I did was actually my Franny Flair video, where I replicated a look from the iconic Miss Franny Fisher. And today we're tackling something a little different. This is probably more of like a Halloween drag style look from the Leica film Coraline. And if you're anything like me, you're a stan of Leica Studios because they're fantastic and I don't think they've ever made a bad movie. So Coraline was their first film, and it obviously is an adaptation of the Neil Gaiman novel of the same name. As you see, I have the fancy 20th anniversary edition, illustrated, 10th anniversary edition, my apologies, illustrated by the iconic Chris Riddell, who is a legend, and if you haven't read the Edge Chronicles, you definitely should. If you haven't read Coraline, you definitely should. Now, Coraline the film was interesting because they had, other than kind of some really basic nitpicky things, it is almost exactly what you read in the book, with the exception of the addition of one character who very quickly became a fan favorite, I know for me in particular, and that is your boy Wybie. Now, in the book, most of the action and most of Coraline's thoughts are vocalized as an internal monologue that she has running through her head, or conversations with the cat. However, in the scenes where there's no cat, they needed a way to have Coraline's dialogue expressed, especially when it's kind of just her wandering around the apartments. And for that purpose, they inserted Wybie, which I think was a really smart choice because I freaking love that kid so much. He's hilarious, and I think he adds some comedic relief to a film that would otherwise be a bit disturbing and very dark. So without further ado, I think most people already at this point know the story of Coraline. So to give you an idea of the look, I'm gonna just be doing kind of a normal older Wybie on this side, and then on this side of my face, I'm going to be doing the other Wybie. Sans mouth stitching, because I don't have the artistry to do the stitched face. But I will be doing the button on this side. As you can see, this tie is already done because I knew this button was gonna take me like forever. So I went ahead and I did this side relatively quickly. So let's get into this button eye right here. Okay, so first step, obviously, I'm gonna go ahead and trace the outline of the circle for the eye. So I'm going to take this Winky Lux Sugar Kitten palette, and I'm gonna be using the shade Rock Candy, this gray one, this cool tone gray right here, and I'm gonna be going in and I'm gonna making that circle outline for this button eye. And while I do that, I'm gonna kind of talk about the film. So I think the interesting thing about Coraline is that it is a film that continues to resonate with audiences even now. It's a story that for some reason audiences, especially young kids, can really connect to. And I've always found that really fascinating about Coraline, because it doesn't seem like it's a story that children would really relate to, at least not in the typical sense. But it's still, especially because of the Leica film, it has remained so culturally present. And I think that's something that's super fascinating, and I think speaks to the power of exactly how good Leica Studios are at making films. And it's a damn shame that their first Oscars for Missing Link and not for something like Kubo and the Two Strings or for Coraline. But this film and the piece of work that it is adapted off of, I feel like really speak to how a lot of kids feel when they're young. It's this sense of just aloneness and being kind of unable to do much for yourself, and this sense of having to rely on others while also really only feeling like you can't rely on anyone but yourself. And I really think that Laika, in the inclusion of Wybie, kind of really helped change the perception of that, because it was like she has a friend now. She has someone she can turn to, and that's very, very important to any kid, especially when they're going through a change so profound like the one Coraline is going through. It's really, I think, a beautiful kind of change to the story, because it gives it a different message without necessarily changing the point that it's trying to make. And I always really have appreciated that way of handling this particular piece. So I've got this outline done. It's a little wonky, but that's fine. We'll fix it with shading and stuff later. But I am going to go in and fill that in, and then we'll do the details on the lid. Okay, now that that's done, we're just gonna go in and start shading around the button. But continuing on from where I left off before we sped through the filling in of this thing, I feel like part of the reason that Coraline continues to be so culturally impactful, like even now when it's an older film, is simply for the reason that it feels almost plausible. I mean, it's in a weird way, it does. And I will go a bit deeper into this when I do my One-Off Wonders video on Coraline. But it's a story that feels, especially to a young kid, like it could happen. I mean, the idea of this better life on the other side of a door that's hidden in your house feels like this escapism. And that's really what it is. It is a very kind of early, it's a young example of escapism for children, which is super important, because as much as escapism is important for older people, for adults, it is just as important for children to have escapist fiction. And I feel like when kids don't have access to escapist fiction, it's really a disservice to them, simply because it can give them a way to rationalize, to explore feelings that they're having that they may not feel like they can safely explore with the adults in their lives, which is extremely, extremely important. That's a huge, huge reason why I think it remains so culturally relevant. Another reason is because I think everyone remembers feeling how Coraline feels in the film. You see, she's just this very lonely kid who's been kind of ripped away from all of her friends and the people that she knows care about her, and her parents don't really have time for her, and she just feels lost. And that is something I feel like most, if not every, young person, young child has felt at some point or another in their lives, is that kind of drifting loss of just, I don't want to be here, and I wish there was a way I couldn't be. If I could find a way out of here, I would. And that's what Coraline does. She kind of finds her way into this other world, and that is her escape. It's her place where everything's better, where she doesn't feel like she's always the odd one out or the final thought. She's the first thing on everybody's minds, and she's the most important person. And that is, I feel, a massive reason why the film has, to this day, remained just so ingrained in pop culture. That, and I feel like that is also in part of Laika's phenomenal creations, their animation, and the score specifically for Coraline is, I think, a huge draw for the film. Personally, I adore the score so much and wanted to buy it on vinyl for my birthday, but it was completely sold out. I was devastated. All right, but it's such an important film specifically for those reasons, because of this escapism and all these other really important kind of early childhood things that a lot of people don't really talk about, but are just as important as every other part of it. Okay, now that the main stuff for the eye is done, I'm gonna go ahead and go in with and do the strings. So unfortunately, the white eyeliner I was completely allergic to, so I had to get rid of it. So we're gonna use yellow, and I'm using the NYX Vivid Brights in Vivid Halo. And we're just making 4 dots. And we're just kind of making them the best circles we can, especially if you're bad at circles like I am. Backtrack a bit. As a note, as somebody with extremely twitchy eyelids, this is probably not the best choice for me. However, I love this movie so much that I'm willing to go through having to dry off all my eyeliner on my eyelid to get these threads right. Luckily, these don't take very long to dry. I'm just being overly cautious. That should be fine. Oh, Lord, that's a lot. Yeah, that's good. God, that didn't smudge. That would have just been a fantastic way for this video to end very abruptly, wouldn't it? But I think specifically in regards to Laika and their character creation and the puppetry that they use, honestly, when I saw Coraline for the first time, having grown up loving Tim Burton, loving Nightmare Before Christmas, I think seeing what Laika did with the puppets and with the puppetry that they used was something so cool to me, because I think that's just a fascinating thing about puppetry in general, is that it's kind of this way of speaking to everyone. And I think that's extremely important, especially when it comes to a film like this. It's a very powerful movie when used correctly and done right. So it comes across straight, but not really in the camera, so appropriate, like sexual content on. Yeah, I think that looks about right. Yeah, that seems pretty good to me. So I'm just going to do some highlighting around the holes in the buttons, and for that I am going to be highlighting and shading, that is. I do not want Lex or Pomp coming after me for not shading and highlighting, etc. So I'm going to go in and first shade around the ends of the string, just to give that a nice little cut off point there. And obviously you're not close enough to really see it on camera, simply because I do not have a good enough recording setup to bring you guys close enough to see every little intimate detail of the fact that I'm not really great at SFX makeup. I leave that to people who are more talented than me, like the people I mentioned before. But just kind of giving those strings a place to kind of cut off, and I'm probably not doing this right. In fact, I'm fully aware I'm not doing this right. However, I just need a way to differentiate between the strings and everything else before I go into kind of highlighting everything. So I'm going to be going in with, what shade is that? That is going to be Trance from the brand spanking new Rico Nasty X Il Macage. This is the Neon Rage palette, and I'm going to be going in with Trance. This shimmer shade right at the end here. This is a very cool palette, by the way, but the pink, well, all of them really, but that pink will stain. I had pink on my arm for a good day after I swatched it. But going in and just kind of filling in the buttonholes and giving the light a place to catch on them, just for a bit of a subtle highlight of, hey, these are something you should be looking at, maybe. But like I said, the cultural impact of Coraline is something that is still just so present, and it's really kind of miraculous how it finds a way to kind of engage with every generation that kind of comes after the initial group that saw it and that would have seen it in theaters when it came out initially. But yeah, it's a beautiful film, and honestly, Leica deserves every bit of the fabulous, incredible credit they get for making that movie, because really, I don't think any other film studio could have made that movie the way Leica did. I think that would have been really impossible for them to do that, because Leica really found something in that film that was just so profound and I don't think really spoken, and it was a beautiful, beautiful tribute. So going into the outfit now, let's do this. So Ivy's outfit is relatively simple. It's just dark wash jeans, boots, and a trench coat of some kind. The biggest things are the hair and the face. If you want to replicate the claymation look, you can totally go for that, but in general, the outfit is really simple. I've thrifted everything for it, with the exception of the shoes, which were just a basic pair of Doc Martens, but it's a very cheap, easy costume, and it's relatively simple to do. All right, so that does it for this newest episode of Formative Fashions. I'm sorry it has taken so long to get this out amidst schedule changes and weeks off and starting new projects, but I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been fun for me because YB, like I said, is a very favorite character of mine. So that wraps us up for this episode of Formative Fashions. And I will see everybody in a week. Well, not exactly a week, a little over a week, for Market Music Monday. Bye.